Isn't it just the two of us today? Why do I have to have dinner with you alone? And in such a fancy place, no less. John said, sounding exasperated. We were classmates in elementary and middle school, and we both dreamed of becoming doctors. John, the son of a doctor, used to look down on me, the youngest of three in a single-parent household, calling me poor. Honestly, I didn't want to have anything to do with him, but we accidentally met again when we were 30. He insisted we have dinner together, but he ended up arranging a group date without telling me. Nice to meet you. Thank you for booking such a lovely restaurant today. John responded with a composed face. During introductions, he bragged about his background and wealth. When it was my turn to introduce myself, he interrupted. This guy's still a college student. No, actually. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You don't need to feel intimidated by me. You are who you are, Dylan. He somehow believed I was still in college. It's one thing for him to be mistaken, but I wish he wouldn't spread that to the three women here. Plus, he kept bringing up my poverty. You need people striving for the same goals, right? But his family was so poor he couldn't even go to prep school and never became a doctor. I see, that's tough. No, it's not that. The sympathetic looks from the women made me hang my head. My name is Dylan Williams. I am the youngest of three brothers, with two older brothers 2 and 5 years older than me. My parents divorced when I was 3. I have hardly any memories of my father, who was apparently uninterested in family life and his children. My mother, Susan, said she couldn't stay in the family with him any longer. As the youngest, I was often ordered around by my 2 older brothers. Dylan, get the remote. Not now, I'm busy. Get it now. I would reluctantly obey, often in tears. At meals, if I ate too slowly, they would take their favorite foods from my plate. Hey, give me back my grapes. I was saving those for last. You should have eaten them faster. I would run to my mom, half crying. Hey, be nicer to your little brother. She would scold them while doing housework. She was a nurse. She was busy with work and taking care of us when she got home. I wanted her to scold my brothers more and pay more attention to me. But she didn't have the energy. Moreover, her nursing job required night shifts, and as a single mother, she took them to support us. Since leaving 3 small kids alone at night wasn't feasible, my grandmother would come over when mom worked nights. But I hated it when she went to work at night. I couldn't sleep well without her beside me. Mom, don't go. Every night shift, I would throw a fit at the door. If I don't work, we won't have food to eat. She would gently explain each time. Usually, I would give in, but one day, I couldn't bear to be apart from her. I don't want food. I just want to be with you. Don't leave me. Seeing me cry louder than usual and not letting go, she seemed to have a change of heart. Do you want to come to the hospital with me? She asked. Yes. That day, for the first time, I went with her to her work. This is my youngest son. He won't be a bother, so can he sleep in the break room? She explained the situation to her colleagues, looking apologetic. He's adorable. What's his name? Dylan. Dylan? That's a wonderful name. I was happy to be complimented on my name. My mom's colleagues, both nurses and doctors, were all kind to me. For the first time, I saw my mom working. Does she not get tired working all night? Isn't she hungry? My mom is amazing. I thought she looked so cool working hard. It wasn't just my mom. All the hospital staff working late into the night seemed so cool to me. Whenever she had a moment, mom would come to the break room and lie down with me. Even when she wasn't there. Her colleagues would take me to the bathroom in the middle of the night or stay with me until I fell asleep, so I didn't feel lonely. When I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor. I'll work with you, Mom. Then we can always be together. Yes, that sounds nice. I'll have to keep being a nurse until then. She smiled as she said this. Her colleagues looked at us warmly as we talked. When I started elementary school, I could no longer accompany Mom on her night shifts. To become a doctor, you need to study hard. Do well in school, and I'll work hard at my job too. My dream of becoming a doctor never faded, and I diligently attended school. In 6th grade, we each had to present our future dreams in front of the class. My dream is to become a doctor. I said this without hesitation. There was one other person who said their dream was to become a doctor. It was John. During recess, he came up to me. "Dylan, you know not just anyone can become a doctor, right?" He said in a mocking tone that irritated me. "What do you mean? The entrance exams for medical school are really tough. Plus, you have to go to college for 6 years. It costs a lot of money for prep school and all. Your family is too poor for that." "We're not poor. But Dylan, you always have hand-me-downs." "That's your brother's name on this, right?" He pointed and laughed at the names of my brothers on my gym bag and ruler. As the youngest, I indeed always used hand-me-downs. However, I was never the type to care about such things, so I had always used hand-me-downs without any issue. It was at this moment that I realized some people saw me as poor because of my hand-me-downs. I go to prep school twice a week to become a doctor. Your family can't afford that, right? You should give up. He thought he was being kind. After saying what he wanted, he left the classroom satisfied. I need to study. He was probably right, we likely couldn't afford prep school. "Mr. Smith, do I need to go to prep school to become a doctor?" I quietly asked my teacher, Mr. Smith. "If you have a strong will, you don't need prep school." He said this and printed out extra homework sheets with advanced problems for me. I fully support students who work hard towards their dreams. If you ever have questions, come to me anytime. I was fortunate to have a supportive teacher, and I improved my skills without needing prep school. Then I became a middle school student. My area was quite rural, without any integrated private middle and high schools. Some kids left home for private schools starting in middle school. But most of my elementary school classmates went to the same public middle school. John was one of them. We hadn't interacted since then, but right after entering middle school, he started picking on me. "I heard you were number 1. Just don't get cocky, it was only because I had a cold." I had ranked first in a test at the beginning of school, beating him. He was clearly upset about losing to me. His family is super poor. "That uniform is a hand-me-down from your brother, right? It's so dirty." He would interrupt my conversations with the girls in class, belittling me with jokes about my poverty. He needed to be the top student and bask in the attention. It was annoying. I tried to avoid him. When I scored higher than him, he would harass me out of spite. So, I stopped solving all the questions, even when I knew the answers. When John ranked first in the next test, he came to me, grinning. "Dylan, what rank did you get?" "8th. See, poverty makes your grades worse." I got first place easily. Poor people who can't afford prep school should just give up on being doctors and start working after high school. "I'll think about it." I realized it was wiser not to provoke him, so I answered him nonchalantly to keep him satisfied. By deliberately scoring around 8th place, he eventually stopped seeing me as a threat. He maintained his top rank and went on to a prestigious private high school in New York. I attended the local public high school. Finally, in high school, I was free from him. Years passed, and now I'm 30. "Hey, wait. Dylan, is that you?" At the airport, someone suddenly called out to me from behind. It's me, John. We were in the same class in elementary and middle school. Remember?" "Wait, what?" The John I knew was chubby and wore thick round glasses. But the John in front of me was tall, slim, and didn't wear glasses. "John? What happened to your glasses?" "Really? Almost everyone wears contacts nowadays." "Well, I guess poor people wouldn't know that. It's not about being poor, I just have good eyesight." Dealing with him is going to be a pain. Memories of the past came flooding back. Seeing me stay silent, he continued. "I'm at the Advanced Medical Center now. I'm a doctor, of course. What about you, Dylan?" "I'm at university now." "University? You're still a student at 30? Well, I guess that's what happens when you're poor." "No, it's not like that. Don't blame the world. You worked hard after high school, saved money, and finally made it to college. I respect your effort. It not that. He barely listened to me and kept sympathizing. As your senior in life, feel free to reach out anytime. Give me your contact info. No, you're probably too busy, it's fine. Don't be shy. Come on, give me your phone. He forced me to exchange contact information with him. Oh. I have a meeting at 1 p.m. I gotta go. Good luck with university. He made a show of being busy and left. I figured he would be too busy to contact me, being a doctor and all, but 2 days later, he got in touch. Dylan, do you have a part-time job this Friday evening? No, I don't. He was completely convinced I was a current university student. At this point, I lost the will to correct him. Let's grab dinner. No, I'm fine. Don't be shy. I'll treat you to something you can't afford as a student. Look forward to it. Anyway, I have a surgery now, so I'll call you later. He abruptly ended the call. Why is he bothering me again? I haven't even done anything to provoke his jealousy this time. But if I refuse his invitation, it will probably become more troublesome. I just want him to lose interest in me without causing a fuss. I thought of various excuses to cancel the plan, but none seemed likely to work with him. Friday came quickly, and I reluctantly headed to the designated restaurant. I gasped when I saw the place. It was a fancy French restaurant. John had told me, just don't wear jeans, so I was dressed in chinos and a button-up shirt. However, everyone entering the restaurant was dressed elegantly and stylishly. Maybe I should just leave. I thought, but then I heard his voice. You're early. I turned around to see John in a stylish checkered suit with perfectly styled hair. I'm a bit underdressed. I'll go change. You go on ahead. You don't have any fancy clothes, right? I'm not that mean. He handed me a paper bag. Inside was a complete suit and leather shoes. Here, take this and change. I can't accept something so expensive. Just take it, poor university student. Besides, it's to save me the embarrassment of being seen with you. Hurry up before they arrive. Go change. He pointed to the restroom at a nearby station. Wait, aren't we supposed to have dinner just the two of us? It seemed like he had invited others, but I had no chance to ask. I didn't like owing him a favor, but I had no choice but to comply. Even a fool looks presentable in a good suit. John smirked as he saw me in the new clothes and swiftly entered the restaurant. I hurried after him. The table we were shown had 6 sets of forks and knives. Isn't it just the two of us today? Why do I have to have dinner with you alone? And in such a fancy place, no less. He said, sounding exasperated. You were the one who invited me. I didn't even want to come. I resisted inwardly. Then, the staff brought 3 women to our table. Nice to meet you. Thank you for booking such a lovely restaurant today. The 3 women who arrived were young and beautiful. Is this a group date? John straightened up, clearly trying to impress the women. He didn't tell me. When I looked at him, he briefly made eye contact with me but quickly looked away. I sighed deeply in my heart. I struggle with meeting new people. Especially young, lively, and noisy ones. While my mood plummeted, he beamed at the women. Thanks for coming. Sorry, one person couldn't make it because of an emergency patient. He apologized dramatically, placing his hand on his chest. Don't apologize. Saving lives is our duty. We sat down, ordered food, and began introducing ourselves. I heard they are all 26-year-old nurses. Their names are Emily, Sarah, and Emma. Apparently, they were college classmates. They are in their 4th year as working professionals. Despite my initial impression, they were well-mannered and understood the appropriate behavior for the situation. Likely due to their professional experience. Next, it was our turn to introduce ourselves. John eagerly started. I'm 30 and work at the Advanced Medical Center. My specialty is cardiac surgery. The Advanced Medical Center? That's where only the best go. Amazing. The women praised him, and he basked in it, continuing his boastful stories. His father was also a doctor who founded a cardiovascular hospital, and he planned to take over the family practice someday. Despite being smart since childhood, he stayed in the local middle school to keep his mother from feeling lonely. For high school, he attended a prestigious private school in New York, where he topped his class. He then got into a famous private university, the university, on his first try. The university has very high tuition, right? And the donation fees are enormous. They murmured in amazement. I, too, was hearing about his high school and university for the first time and was surprised. John was genuinely a rich kid. No wonder he never understood me at all. My parents spared no expense for their kids. I'm very grateful to them. That's why I want to take over the hospital soon and repay them. That's wonderful. They looked at him with eyes full of admiration. I was inwardly exasperated at him playing the role of the dutiful son. Is this how men charm women? I wondered if they could see his true nature. I was completely a spectator. As I observed the four of them to pass the time, suddenly the conversation turned to me. Dylan, do you also work at the Advanced Medical Center? No, I'm at university. He's still a university student. No, I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Don't feel intimidated by me. You are who you are, Dylan. I thought I had a chance to clear up the misunderstanding, but he didn't listen at all. He was acting like a supportive friend. We went to the same elementary and middle school. He also wanted to become a doctor, so I gave him a lot of advice. Oh, you were close friends. You need someone to strive towards the same goal with, right? But his family was poor. So he couldn't go to prep school and eventually didn't become a doctor. I see. No, that's not at all. The sympathetic looks from the women were painful, and I hung my head. Dylan, where are you from? North Dakota. It's a really rural place. He used to bike 6 miles to middle school every day. I got driven every day, though. Even though Emma asked me, John answered for me. What does your mom do for work? She asked me again. She's a nurse, right? You used to say you wanted to become a doctor and work with her when you were a kid. If only you had a bit more financial support like I did, you could have made that dream come true. It's a shame. John always managed to bring up my poverty to contrast it with his wealth. After a few drinks, he got even more vocal about my poverty. He started sharing more about my hand-me-down gym clothes and uniforms, how I always went for the leftovers at school lunch. And even how today's outfit was entirely prepared by him. The three women seemed like kind people. They looked unsure how to react to my poverty story. Especially Emma, who was glaring at John with what seemed like anger for belittling me. But he didn't notice their reactions at all. It's nice that you could reunite with such a wonderful friend. Emily finally uttered some non-committal words. But it was those words that made me finally realize. To John, I was just there to make him look better. Realizing this made me furious, but if he was going to call me poor, then I'd fully embrace it. Since this meal was on him, I'd eat as much as I could. I decided to order some expensive wine too. I silently kept eating. I realized it was a 4-against-1 situation. I didn't know what they thought of John, but as nurses, they were adept at keeping the doctor happy. He remained in a good mood throughout. They chatted without involving me, but Emma occasionally glanced at me. Wow, those mussels were delicious. I might order 2 more plates. I muttered as I came out of the restroom and saw Emma walking towards me. Are you from Fargo, North Dakota? How did you know? Have you lived there? Just a little bit when I was young. Dylan. Yes? Is your mom still a nurse? Yes, she is. She's quite a veteran nurse now. I joked, but she didn't laugh. That's a lovely name. Her words triggered a memory. I suddenly recalled following my mom to her night shifts. Do you know my mom? Not your mom. I remember you. She remembered me? What did she mean? No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember a girl like Emma. Seeing me puzzled, she smiled. My mom is a nurse too, and she worked with your mom. I used to follow my mom to her night shifts. Ah. A faint memory of a little girl came to mind. I was 6 years old then. I was used to following my mom to her night shifts, thinking about whose portrait I'd draw that day. And when I got to the hospital, there was a little girl sitting in my usual spot. Were you the girl I slept next to? Yes. Since Emma and I are 4 years apart, she was 2 years old at the time. That day, her father couldn't come home no matter what. Even so, her mother couldn't take a day off work because they were short-staffed. So, she reluctantly brought Emma to her night shift. Dylan, be Emma's big brother today, okay? As the youngest, I'd always been around older people, so this was my first time taking care of someone 4 years younger than me. What makes a 2-year-old happy, anyway? I poked the little girl's cheeks and tickled her feet, trying to gauge her reactions. Meanwhile, she tore my precious picture book and ruined the drawings I made for her within seconds. But I never got angry. I didn't feel even a shred of anger. Having a little sister is so cute. A girl smaller than me smiled, showing her tiny teeth. It made me feel incredibly happy. Look at this. Emma held out her phone. It showed a picture of little me and little Emma sleeping with our cheeks pressed together. On that day, you put me to sleep. It was the only time I went with my mom to her night shift, but I always wanted to meet you again. I was impressed that she remembered such things from when she was 2 years old. Probably because I was really happy that you played Big Brother for me that day. I was genuinely happy when she said that. Coincidences are amazing, I murmured, but she shook her head. It wasn't a coincidence. I became a nurse because I wanted to meet you, Dylan. What? I was shocked by her words. She moved from North Dakota before she started elementary school, but she could never forget me, even though we only met for 1 day. When she started school and could articulate her feelings, Emma told her mother about me. Then, her mother said, Dylan is going to be a doctor in the future, so if you work in a hospital, you might meet him. Your mom's amazing. Psychic powers? She said you declared it in front of everyone. You said if you became a doctor and worked with your mom, you'd always be together. Back then, I just wanted to be with my mom. I remember her tearing up a bit when she heard my words. At the time, I wondered why she was crying, but now that I'm older, I understand how happy she must have been. Suddenly, I noticed Emma staring at me. Dylan, you're a doctor, right? Her tone was more serious than before, and I felt a bit puzzled, but it wasn't something I was hiding. It was just that John had introduced me inaccurately. I honestly shared my background. As her mother said, I kept aiming to become a doctor, fulfilling my childhood promise to my mother. I was aware that our family wasn't as wealthy as John's. And life in the Williams household with a single mother and 3 siblings was tough at times. But my mom always smiled and raised us well. Wanting to repay her quickly, I studied hard. I entered a local public high school as a scholarship student. I went to a national university with a scholarship, worked part-time, and managed to pass the national exam. I proudly earned my medical license. Assistant Professor Williams, do you enjoy your research? I smiled and nodded at her words. It seemed she had figured everything out. I originally aimed to work with my mother in a hospital, but at some point, I became interested in research. I want to save even more people than I do now. To do that, I need to develop new drugs. After graduating from college, I became a graduate student and immersed myself in research. Fortunately, my thesis gained attention, and I managed to complete a 4-year program in 3 years. I stayed at the university and, as luck would have it, a position as an assistant professor opened up, and I became one this year. Why are you deceiving John? He still thinks you're a college student, doesn't he? She asked, puzzled. You might not believe this, but... I explained that he had always teased me about being poor, and when we reconnected recently after 15 years, he still mocked me for being poor and mistakenly thought I was a college student. He was pretending to be a gentleman, she said, looking thoroughly exasperated. Let's go. She linked her arm with mine and pulled me back to our seats. Emma, thanks for keeping Dylan company. John smiled at Emma, but she ignored him and spoke to the 2 women. Dylan is a doctor and an assistant professor at a university. He's researching Alzheimer's. Emily and Sarah turned to look at me in surprise. Now that you mention it, I think I've seen your face somewhere before. Weren't you in the newspaper recently? Something about collaborating with a British company on research. Sarah was right, our lab was working on a joint research project with a famous British pharmaceutical company. Thank you for reading that small article in the local paper. The three of them exchanged glances and laughed. We work in neurosurgery at different hospitals. So, we were all very interested in the Alzheimer's article. We have to keep studying. Even though we can't compare to doctors. Emily and Sarah nodded behind Emma. I was genuinely impressed by how capable they were. By the way, when I saw your name in that article, I had a hunch. Emma said with a mischievous smile. I see, that's how she knew I was an assistant professor. Dylan Williams. It seemed that my name had brought us together. I felt grateful to my parents for giving me such a wonderful name. Meanwhile, John stood behind us, so shocked he couldn't speak, his eyes wide. You are a doctor? And an assistant professor at 30? You must be joking. He turned red with anger. Why don't you believe he is a doctor? Because he was poor and couldn't afford cram school. How could someone like that get into medical school? He never complained about being poor. He accepted his circumstances and fulfilled his dream. You don't need cram school or a lot of money to achieve your dreams. John, you might not have had money problems thanks to your parents. But your heart is poorer than anyone else's. Emma told John he had a poor heart, and he was left speechless, looking down. Always wealthy and now a doctor, he had been pampered and flattered by those around him, but her words seemed to have struck a nerve. Let's call it a night, we have work tomorrow. Emily broke the tense atmosphere. John quickly disappeared somewhere. Maybe he went to the bathroom? I had been planning to let him pay for the meal since he intended to use me as a foil. But under these circumstances, I felt reluctant. Even though it wasn't my fault, I decided to split the bill with him this time. Isn't John taking too long? I asked a staff member, as he hadn't returned even after a long wait. They told me he had left about 10 minutes ago. And he had already paid the bill. Did I go too far? Emma seemed to be concerned about him. I think your words are definitely reaching him. John isn't really a bad guy from the start. He's just been a bit spoiled. Even though he had money, he worked hard to become a doctor. We all know that becoming a doctor isn't easy. Let's both do our best. With that, I parted ways with them. 3 months flew by. I hadn't exchanged contact information with Emma, so I hadn't been in touch with any of them, including John, during those 3 months. Dr. Williams, you have a visitor. One day, John showed up at my lab. I invited him in. You really are an associate professor. His eyes had completely changed as he looked at me. I'm really sorry for everything. He suddenly apologized. Emma called me emotionally poor, and it made me realize a lot. I've sometimes had trouble getting along with my colleagues at work. And I realized it was my problem. She was worried about you too. You should contact her. Dylan, can we redo that mixer? What? This time, let's do it at a top-notch restaurant. No. That's not the point. I was once again exasperated by John, who thought money was the solution. I just want to treat everyone to something nice. It makes people happy. Well, that's true, but he had definitely changed over these 3 months. He chose a restaurant thinking about the people he'd be dining with. There was no trace of the old John who used to flaunt his wealth. So, we decided to have another mixer with the same group. The event was lively with conversations only colleagues could have. John now saw me as an equal doctor and listened attentively to the 3 nurses. John, what do you think of this analysis? Before I knew it, we had become close enough to consult each other about work. John might get an urgent call, so no alcohol for him. Today, the 5 of us were gathered at John's house. Come on, let's make a toast. Good job today. Cheers. Beer cans clinking with friends were better than wine at a fancy restaurant. We had become irreplaceable friends. So, Dylan, did you tell Emma how you feel? She'll hear. I'll tell her soon. I'll let you know how it goes. The truth is, Emma and I aren't officially dating yet, but we do meet up occasionally. It made me really happy to know that she had been thinking about me since she was 2. Meeting Emma again after becoming a doctor feels like a miracle. I want to cherish this miracle. Here's a good luck charm. What, a love charm? Come on, go for it. I never imagined receiving a love charm from a friend at 30, just before telling someone how I felt. John, you're still a bit off. I chuckled. But I understood that he was thinking about me in his own way. All right. I have to give my all too. I made up my mind. I was completely confused, but she looked at me excitedly with a smile and said, "Amazing, amazing. James, who are you?" She pulled my hand and showed me a certain screen, making me utter a dumbfounded "huh?" My name is James, I'm 30 years old. I've loved books since I was a child, and upon graduating from college, I got hired by a chain bookstore. I was assigned to a bookstore in downtown New York, and my working life began. Living surrounded by books was a lot of fun, and talking to customers about books made me incredibly happy, making me feel like I had found my calling. 5 years into my job, my sales performance was recognized, and I was transferred to the head office. It was a promotion. I've been working at the headquarters for 3 years now, and today, like always, I'm dealing with sales data. One day, my supervisor, Mike, asked me to prepare materials for an important meeting. He wanted me to extract and graph the sales data for a particular regional store. It was clearly data from an underperforming store. "Mike, this is..." I called out to Mike as he walked by and asked him about it. Mike, a slightly good-looking man in his early 40s, scratched the back of his head awkwardly and said, "Oh, we're discussing whether to close that store." "The data doesn't look good," he muttered, peering at my screen. I had actually visited this place once on a trip and had been to this store. It was located in a corner of a rundown shopping district. When I asked about a book, a beautiful woman about my age had kindly helped me. She wasn't very friendly, but she knew a lot about lesser-known authors. "I've been there, it's a bit bigger and has a lot of books, it'd be sad if it disappeared." When I muttered this, Mike nodded. "It's sad to see physical stores disappear." "Well, extract the data for me." "Thanks." He said this, patting my shoulder and scratching his head as he returned to his desk. Scratching his head when he's upset is his habit. He probably doesn't want to talk about closing the store either. The decline in reading is significant, and with the rise of ebooks and the convenience of buying books online, bookstores are struggling everywhere. I sighed and immersed myself in extracting the data. A few days later, I was called by Mike. "Is it something difficult to say?" He was scratching his head with both hands. But as if making up his mind, he looked at me and said, "James, can you transfer to that store that's up for closure?" It was a bolt from the blue. I was so shocked I couldn't speak, and he scratched his head even more. "Sorry, it's just that it's the only store in that area, and it would be a shame to lose it." The head office suggested sending someone, and you came to mind. You said you'd be sad if the store closed, right? So I ended up suggesting you. He spoke to me in an apologetic tone. "Of course, you can decline. At this stage, I can handle it. But you were brought to the head office because of your sales record, right? I thought maybe the sales floor suits you better." I was stunned, listening to his words, but "I'm sorry. I know you just got a head office position. I'll try to keep your benefits the same." He apologized so intensely that I snapped out of it. "No, Mike, please stop. I'll go." When I said this, he looked bewildered. "But it's kind of like a demotion, you know? Demotion or not, it didn't matter. Leaving New York would be a bit sad, but this was a dream come true for me." "Mike, please proceed with this." "Thank you. I love working in sales." When I said this with a big smile, he looked confused. I wasn't lying. Mike has no reason to feel guilty. I aimed to work in a bookstore because I wanted to be surrounded by books. Being a bookstore clerk is my calling. Working at the head office has taught me a lot, but I still want to be on the floor handling books. While he looked puzzled, I joyfully expressed my gratitude for the chance to return to being a clerk. A few months later, After receiving the transfer order and getting a period for preparation, I finally stood in front of the regional branch, ready to work as a bookstore clerk again. It's still in the same rundown shopping district, with little foot traffic. As I pondered how to revitalize the store, I noticed a piece of paper on the ground. Picking it up, I saw it was a promotional flyer from the store. It explained the key points of a book they wanted to draw interest to. The flyer was for a romance novel I had read, with cute handwriting saying, "It'll move everyone, young and old, and packed with reviews." Yes. That part moved me too. As I nodded and read along with the flyer, I heard a voice from behind, "May I help you?" Turning around, I saw a woman with thick glasses glaring at me. "The store opens at 10, but do you need something?" Looking closely, wasn't she the clerk who helped me when I traveled here? I think she wore glasses back then too. "Are you a clerk here?" When I asked, she nodded. "I'm starting here today. My name is James." Raising my voice a bit, I introduced myself, making her flinch a little. "Ah, are you the one transferring from the head office?" Saying this, she apologized. "My deepest apologies. I'm Emily, the manager here, nice to meet you." Her polite greeting left me confused. She's the manager, and I'm just an employee. Why is she being so formal? As I pondered, she spoke hesitantly. "We haven't met the targets set by the head office. I'm truly sorry. You've come all the way here because of that." Hearing this, I panicked. "No. I came from the head office, but it's just a regular transfer. I'm not here in any senior position." She must have been under a lot of pressure from not meeting the head office targets. Amidst this, she was frightened by the arrival of someone transferred from the head office. She thought she'd be directly supervised, managed, and reprimanded. When I told her it was a complete misunderstanding, her eyes behind the glasses welled up with what seemed like relief. However, the head office had sent me here with the goal of boosting this store's sales. "Let's work on this together." I smiled at her, but she responded with a cold, "Yes, looking forward to working with you," and went inside. Our initial interaction suggested a challenging road ahead for communication. A few days later, while working at the store, I observed many things. The first thing I noticed was the lack of energy. Emily, the manager, seemed constantly stressed from the head office pressure. As a result, she always seems on edge. Consequently, the part-time staff also lack enthusiasm. They try to avoid Emily as much as possible and interact with customers in a rather detached manner, likely out of fear of making mistakes. Moreover, there were very few customers. Given the lack of people in the shopping district, this was understandable, but it was my job to find a solution. I racked my brain. For now, I decided to tweak the promotional pop a bit. The pop I found on my first day had excellent content about the novel, with wonderful, relatable comments. However, only if you read it all. The small text was densely packed. While you could feel the creator's love for the book, reading all of it without prior interest would be tough. But I liked this pop. I felt not only the love but also the kindness of the person who made it. The card, softly painted in pink and carefully written, was charming. I slipped the pop into my pocket and started creating a more straightforward version. While setting up the new pop, I continued observing the store. Customers would read a bit and then leave, or they would glance around and say, "I'll just look it up online," before walking out. There had to be a way to turn this around. I carefully observed customer behavior. One day, an older woman was browsing the children's book section, picking up and putting back various books. When I approached her, she was initially wary but eventually told me she was looking for something that might interest her grandson who didn't like reading. My eyes lit up. I love children's books too. They're easy to read, and I often read them lightly before bed when I'm tired from work, which helps me sleep well. After asking about her grandson's interests, I recommended 2 books. She bought both books and left with a smile, saying she'd bring her grandson next time. This could be a breakthrough. Excited by the customer's smile, I eagerly suggested to Emily, "I think there are many people who want their kids or grandkids to read more. Can we enhance the children's book section a bit?" She paused, thinking. Her lack of visible emotions often made her seem stern when she was silent. However, in the past few days, I realized that she wasn't angry but was simply reflecting on what was said. After a moment, she looked up. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. How about placing it near the entrance? Elated by her approval, I set up the section with the help of a part-timer. We managed to create a cute section and I went to report it to Emily, only to hear her distressed voice saying, "No way. Please wait. That's impossible on such short notice." It seemed she was on the phone with someone. I waited for the call to end and then cautiously opened the office door to find her eyes brimming with tears. I rushed in, fully opening the door. "What's wrong?" She quickly turned away, not wanting me to see her tears. "It's none of your business. Get back to work." She dismissed me, but I persisted. "Was it from the head office? Did they say something? A target? It must have been a direct hit." Her shoulders shook as she explained, "They've set an annual sales target. It's 3 times our current sales. If we don't achieve it within a year, they'll close us down. They want monthly progress reports, and if we're not performing well, they might close us before the year is up." She told me in a trembling voice. I had only been assigned here for less than a month. What was happening at the head office? However, even if I confronted Mike at the head office, their decision wouldn't change. So, show me the target. I see, there's no genre specified. In bookstores, it's common to have targets for specific genres, like increasing magazine sales. Here, if magazines had been specified, it would have been challenging. So, I felt a bit relieved. Thinking it over, I muttered, "We might have a chance," making Emily turn around with a glimmer of hope. "Really?" Her eyes behind the glasses were wet. I patted my chest. "Yes. Let's do this. Let's prove them wrong." When I said this, I thought I saw the corners of her mouth lift slightly. I love bookstores. Being surrounded by books filled with so many emotions. I don't want to lose this store. I don't want to lose it. I felt the same way. I heard that she was also 30 years old. Such a huge responsibility on the shoulders of a young woman. I wanted to lighten that burden, even if just a little. A fire was lit in my heart. I went to the newly created children's book corner at the storefront and started calling out to passers-by. "I can recommend books that will make your kids love reading. Please lend me your ear." With that introduction, I began explaining the books for early elementary school students from the corner I just set up. It was early afternoon. Some women returning from lunch and elderly people coming back from shopping started to gather. As I was explaining, some customers asked the part-timer, "Where's that book he mentioned?" This set off a chain reaction, with many people picking up various books. When I couldn't keep up with the demand, I called for help, and Emily came out. She was surprised to see the crowd of customers but quickly started answering their questions politely. While I was explaining to other customers, I could naturally hear her explanation. Her pleasant voice discussing the children's detective series was precise and captivating. It was clear that she had thoroughly researched children's books as well. In just a few hours, we sold a considerable number of children's books, achieving the highest sales in recent times. It became clear that this demographic was responsive to children's book promotions. Next, the plan was to organize a reading event. And then, a book report contest. While talking to customers earlier, I learned that this area assigns book report homework during winter break. I shared this with Emily, discussing the strategy after a customer bought a fantasy children's book, saying it would be perfect for a book report. "Can we distribute flyers to schools?" I was thinking we could have a book report fair, with books categorized by genre and grade level. Not just the recommended books, but other interesting ones as well. When I suggested this, she added, "How about including advice on how to write the reports? We could create chart-style guides to help them." We then discussed which books would be best. Since we both love books, the conversation was lively. Emily looked cute when she talked excitedly. I had a sudden thought. "You would look cute without glasses." She suddenly stiffened. "What did you just say?" It's inappropriate to make such comments to a woman. Realizing that I had spoken my thoughts aloud, I was shocked. Apparently, what I had been thinking slipped out of my mouth. I hastily tried to make excuses, but she just went back to work. Oh, things were going so well. Regretting my slip of the tongue, I finished the rest of my work. 2 days later. During the 2 days Emily was off, I enhanced the reading corner. I created a space where parents and children could freely enjoy reading together. Starting today, I plan to propose having scheduled reading times where staff would read to children. I went to find Emily to suggest this, and was surprised. What? When I saw her, she wasn't wearing her glasses and was blushing. It's not because of what you said, James. I didn't switch to contacts because of you. It just so happened, really just a coincidence. I got a coupon. Her awkward explanation was too cute. I was surprised at how large her eyes actually were. The thick lenses of her glasses had made them look smaller. Cute. The word slipped out, making her turn bright red. Can't you control what comes out of your mouth? I don't usually blurt out my thoughts like this. As I struggled to explain, a part-timer arrived and started fussing over Emily's missing glasses, providing me with an escape. She was blushing and protesting, but I could see glimpses of a smile. The part-timer, surprised by her smile, continued the conversation. Once again, I accidentally spoke my mind. You should smile more. It creates a more approachable atmosphere. The part-timer's face turned pale, and I realized I had messed up again. But this time, Emily didn't get angry. Oh. I'm sorry. Was I unapproachable? Both the part-timer and I were taken aback. Although our conversation ended as the workday began, seeing Emily practicing smiling in front of the mirror filled my heart with a warm feeling. Something I kept to myself. 2 weeks later. With the winter break approaching, we decided to host the fair. It lasted 3 days. Our project, the Book Report Consultation Fair, spearheaded by Emily and me, kicked off. Thanks to the flyers we distributed to nearby schools and the social media announcements, many people gathered. People were crowding around the board I had made. It started with, "Do you like books?" and led to yes or no answers, ultimately recommending genres based on the responses. From there, they were guided to sections categorized by grade and genre. Emily stayed at the book report writing advice corner, gently teaching the kids. In recent days, she had been practicing how to appear more approachable, not just with her smile but also her tone of voice. Her efforts paid off. As a group of curious children gathered around her. An elderly woman, with her grandchild in tow, mentioned she wanted to read but her eyes got tired. I recommended audiobooks, where a narrator reads the book aloud. While this doesn't contribute to the store's sales, I strongly encouraged her to please download from this site. It's our head office's site, along with a flyer. Hopefully, it would help the head office's sales. The 3-day fair, utilizing a long weekend, ended in great success. Inspired by customer conversations, I had several ideas for future fairs but needed a break for now. It had been incredibly busy. Taking a breather, I went to the back and found Emily staring at her computer. How was it? These past 3 days. It was exhausting, wasn't it? Casually asking, she suddenly approached and started shaking my hand vigorously. Completely confused, I saw her looking at me excitedly with a smile and saying, "Amazing, amazing." "James, who are you?" With a dumbfounded huh? I was pulled by the hand and led to her computer. Look at this sales. It was the sales figures for the 3 days of the fair. We had easily surpassed the monthly sales target set by the head office. I was astonished. There are so many parents and children struggling with book reports, I remarked. Emily enthusiastically patted my back. No, look at these numbers. Just 3 days. It's unbelievable. James, you're amazing. Despite her excitement, I couldn't fully grasp it. This success was a team effort, and we just happened to hit the mark with the book report theme. Although I had several ideas for future fairs, we needed to ensure people regularly visited the store to achieve our yearly goal. And I hadn't figured that out yet. When I mentioned this, she sighed and sat down. You're so calm. I felt it too. When customers said we'll come back, it wasn't just polite talk. They genuinely meant it, she said. Emily, having interacted with many customers, could sense these things. Her intuition might be trustworthy. You're amazing. I would never have thought of the fair on my own. I was hesitant about the reading corner, wondering who would do the reading. But people were satisfied with my amateurish reading, she admitted. I couldn't help but protest. You're not an amateur. She laughed. She had smiled more in the past few days than I ever thought possible. I'm an amateur. I love books but hated reading textbooks aloud in school. No, you're a book lover and an expert. She looked surprised. I actually visited this bookstore once on a trip and asked about a somewhat obscure author. You explained it in detail. I thought you knew everything. I wasn't sure if it was her, but Emily confirmed it. Was it Tom Johnson? I jumped in surprise. Wait, you remember that? I had indeed asked about that author. It's rare to find his books in bookstores, so I was surprised to see them there. I love that author too. That's why I was so happy to be asked about him. It's amazing that we share the same favorite author. I took out the pop I had kept in my pocket. It's the one I found on my first day at this store. Ah. That. Seeing her expression, I was certain. You wrote this pop, didn't you, Emily? She nodded shyly. I know it's hard to read, but once I start writing, I can't stop. It's ironic that someone who teaches how to write book reports writes such messy texts. Seeing her dejected expression, I couldn't help but smile. I love it. It's full of affection for the book. I thought whoever wrote it must be a kind person. When I said this with a smile, she turned away. Sorry, it's not written by a kind person. Her comment made me laugh. What's so funny? You're kind and cute, just as I imagined from the pop. Ha! She looked down, flustered. Seeing her like this, my feelings naturally poured out. I want to marry someone who loves books like you. Emily, would you consider dating me with marriage in mind? The words came out naturally and honestly. Her eyes widened in surprise. On the first day, she had been a stern-looking woman with thick glasses, a stern face, and her semi-long hair tied back tightly, making her seem unapproachable. The Emily standing in front of me now had removed her glasses, her expressions were varied and her smile was adorable. She was flustered. I'm just a woman who spends her days off reading books. That's great. I want to read with you. Her face turned bright red. I'm not cute, and I'm plain. No, you're incredibly cute. Her face grew even redder. And I'm not straightforward. I couldn't help but laugh. What are you talking about? You're incredibly straightforward. When I suggested contacts, you came back from your day off wearing them. That's because. It was the first time a man said something like that to me. She covered her face with both hands. When you said I could be cute. I wanted to live up to that expectation. I couldn't hold back any longer and hugged her. In my arms, she said, will you continue to support me? Of course. I feel like we can do anything together. I imagined our future, wanting to read lots of books to our children if I married her. I dreamed of building a small house with a room filled with books. In a sunny room, on a comfortable carpet, Emily and I, along with our children, how many would there be? We would all read lots of books together. Of course, it's okay if the kids don't like books. Just listening to us reading to them would be enough. If we did that, they'd surely grow to love books. Dreaming of such a future, I hugged Emily even tighter.
I'm going to fire a ridiculous person who helped a woman who isn't worth a penny. I was late for a business meeting because I was helping a woman in a wheelchair at the airport. That's why I was fired from the company today. But I don't regret it. I'm sure if I had ignored her, I would have felt a nagging sense of guilt every day. As I was packing to leave the company, the manager, Bill, came running frantically. Mr. Hayes, you need to see the news right now. President Hayes's face drained of color. Not knowing what was happening, I looked at TV and saw the woman in the wheelchair that I had helped. In the next moment, I understood everything. Yes, actually she was. My name is Tyler, I'm 28. I'm just an ordinary office worker at a care products company. I've been working for this company since I graduated, and recently, as the company's sales performance improved, my income has slightly increased. I was, of course, happy about the company's growth. However, I felt a bit uneasy about the way the company was doing business. This was because, under the direction of Bill, who is my manager, we had started adopting a sales style that prioritized pushing products over considering the benefits for our customers. While we were creating reliable products, and this sales style did increase our transactions, I questioned the practice of selling products to people who didn't need them. I once confronted Bill about our current sales approach, but he wouldn't even listen. "Bill, shouldn't we change our sales approach a bit? We're increasing our transactions, so why change?" True, our transactions are up, but this approach might harm our reputation with customers in the long run. We shouldn't worry about our reputation. But I think there's no need to push unnecessary products. If customers are paying, it can't be unnecessary. If you're so concerned, what do you suggest? Maybe something that responds to the customer's needs. That sounds like an excuse from someone who can't do their job. Well, you haven't been doing well, have you? Your performance has always been terrible. Before the sales policy change, I was always among the top performers in the company. But since the change, I couldn't adapt, and my ability to close deals faltered. Because of that, my performance plummeted, always ranking at the bottom. Bill and Mr. Hayes hadn't complained about me before, but after my performance visibly dropped, they started to belittle me. Complaining even though you perform poorly is troublesome. Are you wasting time with pointless chatter again? Then Mr. Hayes came to check on the office work. Seeing him, Bill stood up respectfully. "Mr. Hayes, good to see you." "Good to see you." "Tyler, are you troubling Bill with your nonsensical talk again? Listen to this, he's saying our sales policy is wrong." "Wrong? Bill's strategy has been contributing to the company's growth and is, in fact, a success, isn't it?" "No, I just wanted to adopt a sales style that meets the customer's needs instead of forcibly selling them unnecessary products. If we keep worrying about the customer's needs, our performance will only go down. You don't need to worry about that." "But if you have time to make such comments, why don't you go out and make some sales? This is why people call you a failure." "I'm sorry. Bill, I know it's tough, but please make sure to take good care of your subordinates." "Yes, my apologies." After saying this, he left the office. Afterward, Bill blamed me for getting scolded by Hayes and burdened me with a lot of menial tasks. Since then, Bill has been assigning me menial tasks almost daily, leading to days filled with overtime work because I couldn't finish during regular hours. Rumors of my confrontation with him spread throughout the company, and the employees became afraid to voice their opinions to Bill or Mr. Hayes. Still, I don't think my ideas are wrong. Thinking I wouldn't bend my principles, I continued to work hard. As usual, I took the last train home, completely exhausted. The one who always warmly welcomed me home was my grandmother. My parents have been stationed overseas for work since I was young, so I live with my grandmother, who has difficulty walking, to help her and assist with her medical appointments. Taking care of my grandmother while working is not easy, but as someone who has always been a grandma's boy, I've never felt it to be a burden. "Welcome home, Tyler. You must be tired from today." "Hi, Grandma. You've been coming home quite late recently, and you look unusually tired." "Work has been busy lately. I'm okay." "Are you sure? You're not worrying about something, are you?" She has always been kind to everyone and sharp at noticing even the slightest changes. I thought I was acting cheerful around her, but it seems she saw right through me. I confided in her about my work troubles and conflicts with my supervisor. So that's what's been happening. Yeah, I wonder if I have no choice but to follow the supervisor's approach to secure contracts. How have you been conducting your sales recently? I've been listening to the customers and recommending only what they need. It seems to make them more satisfied. I even tried the sales style Bill suggested once, but it didn't suit me. Then I think you should do what you want to do. But that won't improve my performance, and I might end up getting fired. But I don't think it's right to lie in your sales. Grandma, do you think what I'm doing is right? I don't know much about sales, so I can't say who's right, you or Bill, but I think it's right for you to stick to your principles. Grandma. Hearing her words made me feel validated, and I found myself tearing up. She always told me to be someone who can act for the sake of others. Those words have stayed with me, influencing my attitude towards work. She has always lived by those words herself, having a kind nature that doesn't allow her to ignore someone in trouble. Thanks to her personality, she's well liked by our neighbors and is a well-known figure in our community. I deeply respect my grandmother for all that she is. Even in my current company, there were times I almost compromised my beliefs, but I kept acting on my own terms, believing in her words. But it makes me happy. What makes you happy? That you've been holding on to what I said all those years, even now as an adult. Well, when you were told so many times to act for the sake of others, you start to think you should. But acting for the sake of others can be quite difficult, actually. Is that so? Think about the people around you. Being told that, the first thing that came to my mind was my company's superiors. Indeed, they seem to prioritize profit over acting for the sake of others. Maybe that's true. It becomes even more difficult as you grow older. In that sense, Tyler, you're doing great. I'm proud of my grandson. That's an exaggeration. No need to be so modest. Look, you have work early tomorrow, right? You should go to bed now. Yeah, I understand. Good night. I finished preparing for bed and lay down immediately. Normally, my mind would be filled with anxieties, making it hard to fall asleep, but tonight, I fell asleep quickly. Talking to my grandmother must have eased my mind. It was the first night in a long time that I felt motivated to do my best at work again from tomorrow. Even after that, I continued working while sticking to my principles. Of course, my performance didn't improve, and I was always being picked on by Bill and Mr. Hayes. Overtime became a daily occurrence, and I would return home late every night. You're always slow at work, and your performance is at the bottom. You're really a burden. I'm sorry. I wish you could bring in a big deal for once. A big deal? Well, it's probably impossible for you, but anyway, I need this task done by today. By today, but there's only 30 minutes left until the end of the workday, and I still have other tasks pending. You can't even do that. Other employees manage more work within the time. Understood. I'll take it on. Days like this continued, and sometimes I missed the last train and had to stay overnight at the office to work. Yet, remembering my grandmother's words, I never bent my principles. One day, when I visited a regular client, something unexpected happened. I'm really grateful for everything you've done for us, Tyler. No, I should be the one thanking you. I truly appreciate it. The fact that we can have such pleasant transactions is thanks to you always listening sincerely and explaining the products carefully. That's too kind. I'm just doing what I believe is right. I was wondering if I could entrust this to you, Tyler. Huh? There's a certain company looking for a new trading partner. I thought, how about Tyler's company? Really? Which company would that be? It's Johnson Corporation. Johnson Corporation, that's a major company, isn't it? Are you sure I'm the right person for this? Yes, I'd like to ask you specifically. They value not just the product quality but also the character of their partners. So I can trust you with this. Our company does take pride in our product quality. I'm honored that you think so highly of me. So, will you take it on? Yes, please count on me. Through the client, I managed to get in touch with a major corporation. A few days later, I received a call from Johnson Corporation. And unbelievably, a deal worth $100 million was decided, with me in charge. When Bill learned that I had secured a deal with Johnson Corporation, he was quite shocked. You secured a deal with Johnson Corporation? Yes, it seems to be a significant deal. This isn't some kind of mistake, is it? No, it's not. This is a matter of the company's future. Yes, that's why I was hoping Bill could join the negotiation as well. Of course, I'll join. I'm even thinking of replacing you with a more capable employee for this. Before I knew it, Mr. Hayes had stormed into the office, probably having caught wind of the situation. Everyone in the office turned their attention to us, wondering what was happening. Is it true that we've secured a deal with Johnson Corporation? It seems Tyler was the one who managed it. You did? How? It was through a connection with a regular contact we have. This is crucial for the future of our company. Would it be all right to replace Tyler with another employee for this negotiation? No, that's not working. It's his connection after all, and more importantly, the other party has specifically requested Tyler. They requested me. Yes, so make sure you don't embarrass us. Also, I'll be joining the negotiation as well. You will be joining too. Of course, the fate of our company is at stake here. Bill, make sure you accompany us properly. Understood. And so, I, along with Bill and Mr. Hayes, began to prepare thoroughly for the negotiation. We meticulously planned the negotiation content and presentation, and I was made to practice the presentation over and over. For a while, the company's focus was mainly on preparing for this negotiation. Despite receiving numerous criticisms, I accepted them all and continued to practice repeatedly. This way, I was able to prepare thoroughly and be in the best possible shape for the negotiation. On the day of the negotiation, I was reviewing the presentation materials until the last minute. Noticing this, my grandmother spoke to me. Today's the day of that big negotiation, isn't it? Yeah. The company we're negotiating with is located far away, so I have to take a plane, and I'll be staying there tonight. You're always so busy, but do your best today. Yay, I'll definitely make the negotiation a success. Don't push yourself too much, just do as you always do, and I believe you'll succeed. Thank you, Grandma. Although I had been very tense, this exchange with her helped ease some of that tension. I left the house, reassuring myself that I would be okay. Today, we were supposed to meet directly at the negotiation. So, I headed to the airport to catch my flight. Since I had arrived at the airport a bit early to allow for some extra time, I decided to walk around the airport to clear my head. That's when I noticed a woman in a wheelchair looking distressed and seeking help. The airport was crowded, and the staff seemed too busy with their duties to notice her. Looking at the clock, I realized it was almost time to go through security, but I couldn't ignore the woman in need. I might miss my flight if I don't go through security now, but how can I ignore someone in trouble right in front of me? Hesitating, I remembered my grandmother's words. Be someone who can act for the sake of others. Ignoring my principles was something I just couldn't do, not when I respected my grandmother's words so much. I hurried over to the woman. Excuse me, is there something wrong? It's just that my wheelchair suddenly stopped moving, and I need to catch my next flight quickly. It stopped moving. She seemed to be in a hurry. Fortunately, having a grandmother who uses a wheelchair, I had a fair amount of knowledge about them. I quickly found what seemed to be the problem and started fixing it with practiced hands. Do you think it can be fixed? Most likely, it should be fine. You seem experienced. Do you work in caregiving? Well, I do something related, but I'm also used to handling wheelchairs because my grandmother uses one. That's very reassuring to hear. After a bit of effort, I managed to fix the wheelchair successfully. The wheelchair started moving again, and noticing the woman's urgency, I explained her situation to a staff member who happened to be free and asked them to accompany her to her flight. Thank you so much for everything. It's nothing, really. When I checked the time, the plane I was supposed to board had already taken off. I hurriedly said goodbye to the woman and rushed to change my reservation to the next available flight. As I was about to leave, I heard the woman calling out to me from behind. Please wait. My name is Haley Aris. May I have your name? I'm Tyler. Here, take my business card if you'd like. Well then, I must go. Thank you very much. I handed Haley my business card from my suit pocket. And then I quickly left the scene and completed the necessary procedures. In the midst of the chaos, I also informed Bill over the phone that I had missed my flight and would be taking the next one. Despite the rush, I managed to catch the next flight and boarded the plane. After landing, I headed to the company using the shortest route but ended up being 5 minutes late. Bill and Mr. Hayes were already there, waiting for me, visibly furious for making them wait. How dare you be late on such an important day for our negotiation? I'm terribly sorry. You've just tanked our credibility with the client. How do you plan to take responsibility for this? By the way, why were you late? Well, actually, I explained the incident at the airport to them. I thought they would understand if I explained, but it seems that was just my wishful thinking. As soon as I finished explaining, Bill started berating me loudly. A woman in a wheelchair is worthless compared to a deal with Johnson Corporation. Can't you see that? But I couldn't just ignore her. You should have. Ignoring someone is something even a kindergartner can do. Why couldn't you? Enough, Bill. There's no point in talking to such a useless person. But he's caused such a mess. I'd love to fire you right this instant, but since the client specifically requested you, you'll have to pack your things after the negotiation. Does that mean? Yes, you are fired, but you'll still attend the negotiation. After that, you are of no use to us. Bill and I will lead the discussion, so don't bother doing anything. But I've practiced so much, please let me try. Don't you get it? Someone who prioritizes worthless trash over their job doesn't need to do anything. You are just in the way. At a loss for words, I couldn't respond to their harsh criticism. While we were arguing, a staff member from Johnson Corporation appeared and led us to the president's office. We were told to wait a bit for President Johnson to arrive, so we sat on the sofa in the office, enveloped in an awkward silence. Bill and Mr. Hayes continued to grumble about me in hushed tones. Reaching my limit, I stood up to leave. Then, a familiar figure appeared on the TV in the president's office. It was Haley, the woman I had helped at the airport. Haley seemed to be giving an interview on the news. Look, Bill, the woman in the wheelchair is on the TV. Oh, she's pretty. It's a pity she has a disability. Even as their conversation reached my ears, I was shocked to see Haley on TV, realizing she was someone significant. Haley is on TV. Why? To my astonishment, Haley started talking about the incident at the airport with a smile on her face. Actually, on my way to the studio, my wheelchair broke down at the airport and I almost missed my flight. But then, a salesperson from Hayes Company fixed my wheelchair and escorted me to the gate. We also value personality in our employees, and I hope they can be inspired by him. Of course, we're proud of our excellent staff. Hearing her interview, Bill and Hayes exchanged looks. Hayes, about that interview just now. No way, that can't be it. Then, President Johnson finally appeared in the office. "Sorry for the delay." "Not at all, it's totally fine. We apologize for taking up your time. We're really sorry for our subordinate's behavior." "It's okay. By the way, you saw my daughter on the news just now, right? The salesperson she was talking about was you, wasn't it?" "It seems so." "Seems so. You are quite humble. You're truly a wonderful person. Let me thank you on behalf of my daughter. Thank you very much." "No, I just did what anyone would do." "That's right. Well, since Mr. Johnson has said so, let's just let bygones be bygones regarding Tyler's tardiness this time. But earlier, you said I was fired. Be grateful that kind Mr. Hayes is forgiving you." They cut me off as if to silence my words. The two of them pressured me as if to say not to speak any more unnecessary words. "Thank you for your generous understanding, Mr. Johnson. Shall we proceed to the negotiation?" But as we were about to start the presentation, he stopped us. "No need for that." "Does that mean?" They, seeing his positive reaction to me, were perhaps hoping that he would accept the deal. They smiled with joy. "Does this mean the deal is set? You truly have an eye for quality, to recognize our value without even needing a presentation." "Yes, it seems his reputation is well deserved." "Then, let's sign the contract right away." As Mr. Hayes was about to pass the documents, Mr. Johnson made an unexpected statement. "Sign. I never said anything about making a deal." They were puzzled. "Why not? Doesn't no need to talk mean you'll make a deal with us?" "What do you mean by that?" "Well, the reason is clear. I can't make a deal with people who insult my daughter." "My daughter? We never said anything of the sort, right, Bill?" "It must be some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You were speaking ill of my daughter on TV." "On TV? No way." "Yes, that no way." Just then, a familiar female voice was heard as the door opened. There sat Haley in her wheelchair. They turned pale, realizing who she was. "We had no idea she was your daughter. Please forgive our rudeness." "We deeply apologize." "If it wasn't my daughter, would you say people in wheelchairs are worthless? I can't work with people harboring such vile thoughts. Please leave." "This can't be happening." President Johnson had them leave. As I was about to follow them out, he called out to me. "Wait, your name was Tyler, right?" "Yes." "Weren't you just told by Mr. Hayes that you were fired after this negotiation?" "Yes, I was told I'd be fired after this, as I'd no longer be needed." "How do you know about that?" "Our company places a great emphasis on character, so during negotiations, my father always monitors the attitude of our business partners closely. Even a slight misstep, and he's willing to call off the deal. He's that strict." "So, you've been monitoring us since we arrived at the company." "If that made you uncomfortable, I apologize, but I believe that while profit is important, what's most essential is the ability to empathize and act considerately towards others." His words reminded me of my grandmother's teachings. I had always been dissatisfied with the management philosophy of my former company, but I deeply respected his viewpoint. "So, having observed your actions, I think you're a perfect fit for our company. How about it, if you're okay with it? We'd love to have you join our team." "Me, really?" "I also agree with bringing Tyler into our company. Would you consider it positively? If you think I'm suitable, I'd like to contribute to your company immediately. Please, count on me." Thus, I left Hayes Company and transitioned to Johnson Corporation. When I shared this news with my grandmother, she was overjoyed as if it were her own achievement. "It's good to see that your efforts have been recognized, Tyler." "That's an exaggeration." "What are you saying? Your parents overseas are thrilled. Moving to such a prestigious company is amazing." Grandma, did you go ahead and tell them? It's not a bad thing, right? In fact, I even boasted about it to our neighbors. Grandma, that's embarrassing. Tyler, acting for the benefit of others is a good thing, isn't it? Jay, if Grandma hadn't taught me that, I might not have found such a great company. Thank you. I didn't do anything. You achieved this on your own, so be more confident in yourself. All right. Thus, even after joining Johnson Corporation with a recommendation from Mr. Johnson himself, I never became arrogant but continued to work in my own way. As a result, my efforts were recognized, and I quickly climbed the career ladder. Meanwhile, Hayes Company's reputation declined due to the incident. Furthermore, it seems that by not adopting a more customer-centric approach, we failed to secure additional purchases, leading to a decline in performance and bringing the company to the brink of bankruptcy. Later, I reunited with Haley at the company and even went out to dinner with her. By then, Haley's health had improved to the point where she could walk without a wheelchair. That dinner was nerve-wracking, but her bright and kind nature felt like a saving grace to me. This restaurant's food is delicious, isn't it? Jess, thank you for inviting me. Let's drop the formalities. Are we the same age? Don't tell me you don't remember me. Wait, you're Johnson's daughter, right? Not that. We were classmates in elementary school. Could it be Haley Johnson? But your name now is Haley Harris. Back in elementary school, being known as the daughter of Johnson Corporation's president brought me nothing but trouble. I was even nearly kidnapped several times, so I started using my mother's surname from middle school. I remember now. You always seemed to have a hard time back in elementary school. But you were always there to help me, Tyler. It meant a lot to me. I couldn't stand by and watch someone who hadn't done anything wrong suffer like that. You've always been a good person. Not really. Plus, I couldn't ignore a pretty girl. Are you saying I'm cute? Well, yeah. Actually, I've been interested in you since elementary school, Tyler. Really? I had no idea. Of course, after being saved by you so many times, I always wanted to repay you. Now that we've reunited, I'm truly happy. I'm glad we met again too. I've been thinking about you. Really? Yeah, so if it's all right with you, would you be my girlfriend? Of course, I'd be delighted. And that's how we started dating. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and when we went to greet Mr. Johnson again to discuss marriage, he was overjoyed and accepted us warmly. Later on, Haley and I got married and were blessed with 2 healthy children. As a prospective future president, I work hard every day, and now, blessed with a family, I lead a happy life. Show me where that incompetent loser works. The one who soured my excitement for the long-awaited reunion was Mary. She's always been mean to me, trying to get the upper hand like this. The reason is that I wasn't very good at studying during our school days. I was irritated by her holding on to that, even at 40, but at the same time, I was impressed she could remember such things. It seems Mary, who thinks I'm incompetent because I wasn't good at studying, wants to see where I work. So, after the reunion, I decided to take her to her husband's company's CEO office. She doesn't know I'm the CEO of a major company with 7,500 employees and laughs at me for not teasing her. However, when her husband came out from inside the office and explained the situation, she turned pale. And then, she regretted her past actions. My name is Robert. I'm turning 40 this year. I run a company with 7,500 employees and have recently managed to take some time off. When the company was new, I was too busy to even think about leisure, let alone attend reunions. But I've RSVP'd to the upcoming reunion. This reunion will be attended by classmates from our senior year of high school. As I looked through the yearbook to see who would be there, among all the familiar faces, there was one that made me feel a sense of aversion. That person was Mary, who used to lead our class. She was a kind of leader in our class, always in charge of organizing class events, and was part of the so-called popular group. Looking at Mary's photo, I couldn't help but remember the past. I think it was sometime in our senior year. Unfortunately, I ended up surrounded by girls after a seat change. For someone like me, who enjoyed whispering with friends during class, it wasn't exactly the best environment. Then, an incident happened. That day, my close friend was absent, and I was eating lunch alone. Surrounded by groups of girls at the surrounding desks, I felt slightly uncomfortable as I popped a side dish into my mouth. Hearing the beautiful chirping of birds from outside, I instinctively wanted to see the view and looked up towards the window. At that moment, I made eye contact with a girl nearby. That girl was Mary. "Hey, what are you looking at? You were just staring at my chest, weren't you?" I was just trying to look outside." "What? Are you saying I misunderstood?" "No, it's not like that, but..." For some reason, she was convinced I was looking at her chest and kept accusing me throughout lunch break. Moreover, her voice carried across the classroom, turning the suspicion into a source of cold stares from classmates. No matter how much I tried to explain, Mary seemed determined to paint me as a bad guy. Eventually, the classmates' misunderstanding was cleared, but that was the start of the harassment from Mary and her friends. "There you go looking my way again. It's creepy, so stop it." "I told you, I'm not looking at you." "Sure you're not." Accusations like these were frequent, and sometimes they'd even hide my textbooks. My classmates and friends always came to my rescue, but Mary never stopped her harassment. In fact, her anger only grew when she saw I had support, escalating her behavior. For example, she'd write fake love letters to call me out, only to ridicule my earnest waiting, or she'd give me a different meetup location for a class party. Luckily, I was supposed to go to the party with a friend, so I managed to get to the right location. Mary didn't stop her harassment until we graduated. I have completely forgotten about her after graduation, but it seems she'll also be attending this reunion. Despite a slight sense of dread, I was looking forward to seeing my old classmates after such a long time. 1 month after receiving the invitation, the day of the reunion finally arrived. Having finished important work the day before, I was ready to fully enjoy the reunion today. With a mix of nervousness and excitement, I headed to the venue for the reunion. This time, it seems there are many attendees, so a slightly more upscale venue was chosen. The plan was to use a luxury hotel as the venue, with a participation fee of $100 per person, which is a bit on the higher side. But at 40, most people can afford that amount without much trouble. I took the elevator to the designated floor and checked a guideboard. Upon arriving, I handed an envelope containing the participation fee to a classmate at the reception and entered the venue, where several people had already arrived. Looking around, I immediately spotted Mary. Wanting to avoid her as much as possible, I tried to move to the edge of the room, but unfortunately, I seemed to have caught her eye. Noticing me, Mary happily hurried over. "I never thought you'd attend the reunion. Did you actually pay the fee?" "It's been a while. I just handed it over at the reception." "Really? We probably had someone else pay for you." "I paid with my own wallet, actually." Right from the start, Mary was throwing snide remarks my way. I thought she might have matured at 40, but she's just the same as she was in school. My faint hope that we might get along now was dashed, and with a slightly slumped shoulder, I decided to go get a drink. I headed for the drinks to shake off Mary, but somehow, she followed me. She then started asking various things, like what job I'm doing now and how much money I have. Hey, where do you work now? Well, you can't say, can you? My husband, you see, works at a major corporation and is incredibly handsome. Stumbling over my words, Mary took it as a sign that I worked somewhere unmentionable and began boasting about her husband. They met at a mixer and got married quickly. She can live on her husband's salary alone, so Mary became a homemaker. And now, they're blessed with 2 children and living a comfortable life. Well, I'm not like you, a poor person. Poor person? Yeah, you were never good at studying back in school. That was decades ago, wasn't it? It seems Mary still remembers my struggle with studies and teases me about it. While I'm irritated that she's still hung up on it even at 40, I can't help but admire her memory for such things. Mary, who has always been called pretty, had grades similar to mine, yet her self-esteem is quite high. It would be fine if it was just high self-esteem, but it's troubling because she tries to put others down to lift herself up. The classmates seemed to hear Mary's voice, visibly frowning, but she didn't care and kept bad-mouthing me. As the reunion went on, I enjoyed catching up with old friends, but towards the end, Mary cornered me again. Show me where that incompetent poor person works. My workplace. Yeah, you must be free after this, right? Take me there. She seems to still want to look down on me. I hesitated a bit, but it would be annoying to leave her with the wrong impression, so I decided to take her to my workplace. All right, meet me in front of the hotel after the reunion is over. I'm looking forward to it. You're probably working in some rundown building, right? Later, Mary and I met in front of the hotel and took a taxi to my workplace. My office is in a prime location in downtown. As the taxi got closer to downtown, Mary began to get restless. When I got out of the taxi in front of a certain building, she started looking around nervously. Where's your workplace? Right here. This building in front of us. This building is your workplace. Oh, I get it. You must be working as a cleaner or security guard here, right? Seeing the sizable building, Mary, perhaps flustered, started talking under the assumption that I was dispatched there rather than working there. But I am the CEO who manages this entire building, and I need her to know that. I interrupted Mary's speech to tell her the truth. You might want to deny it, but I'm the CEO of the company in this building. Well, what? CEO? I could believe you're an employee, but CEO is stretching it too far. Is it? I started this company from scratch about 10 years ago and became the CEO. Don't lie, there's no way you could be a CEO. Show me some proof. When Mary demanded proof that I was the company's CEO, I pulled out my business card holder from my pocket. I carefully extracted a business card and presented it to her with both hands. Mary took the business card from me and scrutinized the text as if she could bore holes through it. See, it clearly says CEO. Does this convince you? I won't believe it just because of this. Anyone can forge a business card. Why are you so unwilling to accept that I'm the CEO? Because you were never stand out in high school, not smart, and someone like that being more successful than me. It seems she doesn't want to admit I'm the CEO because she can't bear the thought of me being more successful than her. I don't think being a CEO necessarily means I'm successful, but I do believe I'm happier than someone who is constantly concerned about social standing, pride, and status like her. Mary looked at the business card again and seemed to realize something. This company, come to think of it, it might have the same name as the company where my husband works. Turns out, the husband Mary had been bragging about works at my company. Still, it's thought she only has a vague memory of the name of the company her husband works for. What kind of conversations do they have regularly? Setting that aside, I decided to ask for more details. From the industry and company name she mentioned, and after hearing about the nature of the work, it was almost certain her husband worked at my company. So, my husband works under you. That's impossible. If that's true, it would be quite ironic. Ironic? What's so funny about it? The fact that you've been looking down on me all this time. My frustration built up over time made me say such things. Normally, I wouldn't speak ill of others or make snide remarks, but conversing with Mary disrupts my pace. Mary, provoked by my words, was trembling and clenching her fists. This might escalate into a shouting match. How should I defuse this situation? As I was pondering, someone came running out of the building. "Hey, isn't that Mary? What are you doing here?" The person who emerged from the building was Steve, Mary's husband. This confirmed that Mary's husband worked at my company. She awkwardly greeted Steve while looking uncomfortable. "Just passing by and thought I'd stop by." "Is that so? Wait, did I ever tell you where my workplace was?" "Well, you know, the address was on the business card." "Did I give you my business card? By the way, Mary, why are you with President Williams?" Steve seemed puzzled to see me with her and asked. But now that it was clear I was the CEO, she was visibly flustered. So I decided to explain everything on her behalf. "Actually, your wife is my classmate, and she wanted to see where I work." "You were classmates, but why your workplace?" "Hey, if you say any more, I won't forgive you. Your wife has been harassing me since high school, and today she wanted to see the workplace of the incompetent pool person." Hearing my words, Steve froze with a look of shock. He probably never imagined his wife would do such a thing to the CEO. Mary, realizing her misdeeds were exposed to her husband, started sweating profusely. It seems that she had not shown her true nature to Steve. She probably only showed a polished version of herself. Given that Mary was good at ingratiating herself with teachers and winning over peers in her student days, this comes as no surprise. Let me hear more about this in detail. No, what I just said was just a joke among classmates. Don't take it seriously, okay? It's no joke. Are you planning to harass me and then make excuses? Would you just shut up? It's so annoying, especially from someone as introverted as you. Faced with my persistent remarks, Mary finally raised her voice. She covered her mouth in shock, but it was already too late. Steve seems to have developed a distrust towards Mary. In high school, Mary had a few boyfriends whom she switched between, but eventually, her true nature was exposed, and they broke up with her. The same might happen this time. She seemed to realize this, looking at Steve with a frightened expression. Come to think of it, Mary mentioned she had become a housewife. If they were to talk about divorce now, it would surely lead to a massive confrontation. However, Steve did not immediately suggest divorce. But he seemed unable to forgive his wife for being rude to me and said this. "Mary, I'm disappointed in you. I thought you were a good wife. I didn't do anything, it's true. Believe me, not this person. There's no way he would lie. Besides, actually, the kids have come to me with some concerns too." Concerns about what? It seems the kids have also noticed Mary's unpleasant character and have discussed it with their father, Steve. Considering the numerous troubles she has caused at the kids' school, they are under a lot of stress. From dominating conversations among mothers to demanding preferential treatment for her child from teachers, I couldn't help but nod as Steve told me these stories. I haven't seen Mary since our senior year of high school, but somehow, I can imagine. I had hoped you had become a better person, but it seems I was wrong. I don't have time to deal with you right now. Go away. Hey, how dare you speak to him like that? As the argument between Mary and Steve heated up, I decided to leave the scene. Staying any longer would only involve me further. I quietly slipped away, but Mary seemed not to notice at all. 3 days later, Steve came to me and updated me on the situation. Apparently, Mary loves the kids too much and unintentionally lashes out at others. And I learned that she used to be hostile towards me during our school days. Seeing me with many friends and a close family made her envious. I always thought of myself as an ordinary, unremarkable person, but it seems Mary saw me differently. Then, Steve began to express how grateful he was to me. Steve was struggling with job hunting and had no choice but to take on physically demanding work. At that time, it was me who approached Steve, who was looking downcast in the park. I suggested to him that if he was job hunting, why not work for us? Back then, we had just started the company, so we couldn't pay much, but now that the company has grown, I believe we're providing a salary that matches his abilities. I was grateful for the few employees willing to work with us in those early days, and it turns out Steve was grateful to me too. If you hadn't reached out to me back then, who knows where I'd be? I'm the one who should be thankful. You really helped me out by accepting my offer. When I told my wife about it, she stopped arguing. So, have you made up? When I asked this, Steve shook his head yes. I can forgive Mary for the harassment, but maybe she had her own issues and conflicts. It just so happened that I was the target of her harassment at the time. Mary still sulks at times, but she seems to have a keener expression than before. And then, for some reason, on Valentine's Day, Steve gave me chocolates. I was told Mary was the one who sent the chocolates, and I was quite surprised. Why would Mary give me chocolates? Maybe it's her way of apologizing. Please do accept them. An apology. Then I have no choice but to accept. With that, I took the chocolates that were offered. Unwrapping them, I found a letter of apology inside. Although I still dislike Mary when I attended the reunion, now I don't feel as angry. I thought it was strange to have my feelings changed by chocolates and a letter, but those two things seemed to reveal her true intentions. Mary must be a person who finds it hard to express herself honestly. As I ate the chocolates with my wife, I thought about this. Sometime after the reunion, I was back to my usual routine. It's a busy period, so I have to work overtime, but I make sure to spend time with my family. I believe the reason I'm able to stay healthy is that my wife lovingly prepares healthy meals for me. When I'm alone, I tend to eat instant noodles or fast food, but knowing that my wife is waiting at home with delicious food makes me want to work harder. Recently, she's even started making lunch boxes for me to take to work. Now that the children are a bit older, my wife seems to have more time on her hands. While enjoying my lunchbox full of love, I look over the materials. Soon, there will be a meeting about expanding overseas. Driven by the desire to make our company known worldwide, we are preparing for this international expansion. It might get busier, but that just means making more time. Even when busy, whether having dinner with my family or staying up late eating instant noodles, even when staring down documents in my computer, I feel happy. It's like I can really feel alive. Having a job to do and a family to care for is more than enough for me.